Hi, this is Colin Hung with Healthcare IT Today. I'm sitting down today with Quinn Pauly, who is Chief Medical Officer over at Switch. We're going to discover his unique journey to Switch and what Switch does. Quinn, thank you for joining me today.
You're very welcome.
So we were talking before, and I'm fascinated by your story because you were a primary care physician, and now you've moved over to work for Switch, which is an infrastructure company. Not a typical journey. Can you maybe expand on that for us?
Sure. So I'm a family practitioner by trade. I'm 56 years old and had been practicing medicine continuously for 30 years, and live here in Reno, Nevada. And the CEO and founder of Switch introduced himself to me, found out about me here in town, and met with me, and we, just started having a conversation, and it became clear to me early on that, he was very motivated and passionate about healthcare in general, and how Switch might be part of the solution, and what I refer to often as the broken healthcare system that we have. And so that first meeting, it was a couple hours. I was a little surprised, nothing like that had ever happened to me, where someone would show up in my office and so forth. We hit it off, and he liked kind of my ideas. And long story short, before the end of the meeting, he said, "Well, I want to hire you as our chief medical officer." And I was taken aback, and it's like, well, let's see here. I'm a clinician. I really don't know much about the data center industry or infrastructure or telecom or any of those things. And he said, that's all right. I want someone with my clinical background and just my kind of wisdom, I guess, of having done what I did for 30 years. And I talked it over with my wife, and it took a few months to get all the details worked out. And long story short, I said, it's probably a good time to reinvent myself. And for the last 20, 30 years of my career, and so I said yes, and I started at Switch in August of 2019.
First of all, kudos to you for checking with your significant other before making a career change like that. It's probably a very wise move.
Yeah,
Good advice. But, obviously Switch has a focus in healthcare. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought someone like you on board. But why such a focus? Like, why is that focus so necessary? What is this, what is it that maybe Switch and you are hoping to help healthcare fix?
right. And I asked that exact same question before I said yes. The immediate answer was, it's the right thing to do. Rob Roy, our founder and CEO, he likes to do the right thing, and he just knows that we have 800 employees plus another 1,200 lives that we self-insure, and but also just the bigger picture of the healthcare spend, and we're not really getting what we pay for in the U.S. in terms of health outcomes and so forth. And he knows that the digital footprint of healthcare is only going to get bigger, and it just needs to be better and more efficient. And he wanted me on the team to help it along. So I don't really think it's any more complicated than that. I mean, we are a business, but we even talked about that, and it was just went right back to, no, it's just the right thing to do for Switch to be involved in that process.
Now, is that because, and again, we kind of talked about it before we got on air here, but this concept of, look, cybersecurity is now hyper important for healthcare. Downtime and having your systems available is so important, because when they're not, that is lives potentially lost, right? And I guess healthcare, is probably over the last few years has maybe not made the investments necessary themselves to maintain their infrastructure, to maintain these systems. And so is that kind of where Switch is hoping to help?
Yeah. So, you know, again, I've been able to, meet a lot of our current healthcare clients and, kind of hear their story. And it's often very similar in that, they were in a place where, they thought things were going well with their digital infrastructure and something happened. They had some form of either software or hardware or power or something, and their system either went down or it nearly went down, and they kind of and they realized maybe us having a data center in our basement or some antiquated system isn't the way to go. And so they did their their due diligence and looked at all the various options out there, and obviously the ones I know about are the people that chose Switch. And and then they're very happy that a lot of the things that kept them up at night no longer exist. And so having heard that over and over, I kind of want to shout it from the rooftops that that we're out here, and that we would like people to at least come and get a tour and see what we have to offer, and see if we are a good fit from all the different products that we provide. And now it's kind of my thing. It's like, now I think it's the right thing to do, because we've heard how we've been able to solve some big problems in that realm of downtime and so forth.
So you were at Renown as a physician before joining Switch. And now, did Renown implement Switch, and did you sort of see sort of the before and after picture?
Yeah, absolutely. So so listen, I'm a clinician. I was seeing patients all day. Had my EMR in front of me. That was my interface with the infrastructure. So this occurrence of Renown converting their whole system over to Switch happened without my knowledge of it, but the after effects were profound. The system just worked better, and there was less. You didn't have to show up and go, Epic's not working today. All that went away, and it just became this very seamless system for a clinician, which was fantastic. And then just coincidentally, 2 years later, now Switch is wanting to hire me. So just from a personal standpoint, I noticed the night and day difference.
So it sounded like the systems after the switch to Switch more reliable, more uptime, just more dependable.
Yes, absolutely, and 100% uptime. There weren't any more. That never happened again in the several years after 2016, before I came here. And then I got to know our CIO at Renown before I came to Switch, and he was just glowing with how happy he was with the change. And they did their search and ended up moving to Switch. And that was another instance where that story was very similar to what we'd heard from our other big healthcare clients.
So we have a mutual friend, of course, Suzanne Hendry over at Renown, who introduced us. And the way she described your data center was just incredible. Your facility there in Reno. Like, can you maybe kind of explain it to our listeners and our readers? What is the Switch infrastructure really like?
Sure. So a couple things. We're very top heavy in security.
Okay.
Physical security for sure, but so it kind of looks like a fortress from the outside, and we have the world's single largest data center is out here, Reno Tahoe, but we also have multiple data centers in Las Vegas, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Atlanta is our newest one. And they all look very similar, because when someone comes in to work on their servers and so forth, we want it to look like, hey, I know where to go. So security is a big deal, and redundancy. So we're in the 20 years of our existence, there's never been a single time when we've had to refund anyone because their power went out. That just doesn't happen. So we've figured that out in terms of the power part. The cooling is a huge issue, and again, this is all news to me as before I came here, and now I'm kind of an expert at it. But so the ability to cool our servers in a very unique way that's more efficient and in terms of energy, but also in how it's more standardized from top to bottom. And I'll have to give you a tour of Switch very soon if you're interested to kind of show you how it's done. And also sustainability is part of our DNA too. We have 100% green energy, and we win awards all the time in terms of being in the tech industry and how sustainable we are. So and then the other big thing that really resonated with me as a clinician is our annual audits and certifications. Where all our facilities are HIPAA certified, and that across the board, all the other certifications, annual audits that the healthcare systems need, we already have in place. So so I think between the resiliency, the capacity, we're constantly building too. In Las Vegas, we have 3 new huge data centers going because we have that many clients that are wanting to join. And certainly, we are also a telecom company. I can get into that if you're interested too. So, as part of my interview process before I joined, Rob said, "Hey, I want you to get a tour." And I kind of said to myself, I'm not into the healthcare. I'm not into data, if you will. I'm a clinician. And I was like a little skeptical maybe even. And it was the most interesting tour I've ever had. Even if I hadn't come here, I'm just telling you that, the lengths to which Switch goes to keep your data safe is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I heard that, when you say fortress, conjures up images of, guards and cameras and fencing and multiple levels of identity checking in order for you to get inside to your server. I'm assuming there's like escorts of people too, in order that you don't go to a server that you're not supposed to be going to, that kind of thing. Is that accurate?
You could be a spokesperson. Everything you just said, we already do. It's all our security are our employees, and the vast majority are ex-military, you can't go where you're not supposed to go, and that's the short of it. But yeah, very, very strict on access and so forth. So it is very impressive.
And I'm assuming because you're in Nevada there that sustainable energy, solar is kind of how you're doing a lot of it.
Yeah. So we've had a solar presence in southern Nevada for a long time. We just launched. I think it's referred to as Gigawatt Nevada up here in Reno. That'll be the largest behind the meter solar energy project on the planet. The goal being that not only in Vegas we produce a bunch of electrons that go back on the grid, and then we take them, credit them off the grid. This one will be we'll actually be able to run our data center off the electrons that we're generating from our own power. So that's really exciting. That just launched in the last 6 months or so.
So let's talk a little bit about, what you just mentioned a little bit ago around, you've heard this story over and over again. If you were talking to a clinician, a peer at another organization, what would you tell them in terms of the signs to look for that maybe your infrastructure needs some help? Like what would be the things, how would it manifest to a clinician?
Sure. That's a good question. I think, the kind of way I look at it is, I'm good at what I do in terms of, being, able to take care of patients. But I wouldn't want to start my own data center or even, in my office, if you will. And there are people in the healthcare industry that they want to do that. That's kind of, their goal is to have it all there on premise. And it just, we're able to just focus on it 100% versus, they're having to deal with, like you say, cyber attacks and other things that, as well as taking care of this data center. So I think just the, letting us focus on what we're really good at and letting healthcare focus on taking care of patients.
Do you expect, have you heard from clinicians that, these other customers that you have at Switch, have they noticed the difference when people, move to your infrastructure as opposed to having it on-prem?
Yeah, absolutely. There's another large outpatient conglomerate of clinics in Southern California that's a client of ours, and I've gotten to know actually their CFO I knew from before, and I just asked him, point blank, if they hadn't made their switch to Switch, for example, right before this pandemic started, he was concerned they would have actually had to close down, their data center, someone had stolen the copper from the generators or something like that, and it was just very kind of vulnerable, if you will, and these are his words. I was just kind of asking the question, and so it was very relief, I think, would be the term he would use, and again, I've heard that again and again, that just they're not up at night worrying about that thing that could go wrong. And again, things can still go wrong. My heart goes out to all those entities out there presently that are, being victims of this cyber criminal attacks that are going on. And, that's, an industry unto itself to try and protect against that. But having a very up-to-date infrastructure with all the other kind of built-in security makes it easier. But again, that's a big problem for sure.
Switch isn't a household name or a well-known name in healthcare yet. Hopefully, with your work, it will become one. But what would you say to if I was a CIO, what would you say to me that says this is why Switch stands out? This is why Switch makes sense for you as a healthcare, or for me as a healthcare organization.
I think the fact that we've put as much effort and progress into actually addressing what healthcare needs. We're not saying, well, all data centers are the same and all data is the same, and it doesn't, what difference does it make? We're good for healthcare, we're good for entertainment. No, we're again, the fact that I'm here is a testament to that. But yeah, we're solely focused, not solely, we are focused on really letting the healthcare industry know that we're attuned with what their needs are, and we go out of our way to make sure that preemptively we have all the audits and the infrastructure and the ecosystem that enables them to thrive. And it's not, healthcare isn't an afterthought. It's very, very much something that we're focused on and prioritized. And again, our clients are the beneficiaries of that, and they let us know. And so back to this, yeah, I would say, take a look, come, we're very proud of what we have, and we're very transparent, and with COVID, we're doing primarily virtual tours, of one of our data centers, wherever you happen to be, but we used to do them in person. So I would say come take a look, ask every question you can imagine, and see if we are in fact a fit. And then, at least then you're educated as to, what we have to offer.
Cool. And where can people find more information about your organization and take these virtual tours? And
so switch.com, I could pull up our webpage on my other screen here. I'm sure there's a link either on the front page or very nearby that would enable you to sign up for a virtual tour. And you could contact me if you're interested in just asking me some questions. Yeah, and again, we're all about, if it's meant to be, if this is the right solution. If not, we know everybody in the industry and can tell it like it is. Yeah, that's always, I think, a really good place to start, because and now that I've been here, I participate in all these tours. There's a good person on our team that gives them, many people, but I like to tag along just because I learn something new every time. And it is gratifying when people walk out and going, oh my gosh, they have it figured out. And some of the things that we figured out, I wasn't even quite sure what they were, but beforehand. But yeah, so that's I think how I would do it.
Well, I certainly will look forward to taking a virtual tour, because right now in my head, I'm thinking that this facility looks like, the facility that Tom Cruise broke into in Rogue Nation, right? With that pool of water and the giant data center. And, I have that vision in my head, and I'm sure it's just as secure as that one was depicted in the movies. But thank you. No, and your journey is so interesting, from being a primary care physician, now going over to the infrastructure side. Infrastructure definitely is something that healthcare is concerned about, especially with cybersecurity and the constant updates and the performance needed of the network in order to keep their systems, which are only getting more complex, but keeping those systems up and running, because lives do matter and lives will hang in the balance when those systems aren't available. So yeah, no, look forward to it, and look forward to hearing more from Switch in the future.
Yeah, and yeah. So it's I love my job. It's going well, and another part of what I do is a corporate wellness program that we created internally that I'm very proud of. And then it was somewhat clairvoyant on Rob's part that he hired me before the pandemic. When this started, my nurse and I, 24/7, 365 from March 12th on, had a COVID-19 hotline that we staff for all our employees and their dependents to, get their questions answered and so forth. We've had to stay open. We're critical infrastructure. We still have 500 people that come to work every day at our manned facilities, and we haven't missed a beat there. So being proactive in that respect. And also, answering some of our clients' COVID-related questions and so forth have been helpful as well.
Well, Quinn, thank you so much for being on the program today. Really appreciate your time and for educating us a little bit on what Switch does.
Fantastic, and thank you for having me.
This has been Colin Hung with Healthcare IT Today. Thanks for listening.